Chapter 19, page 157. What we need, Ray says, is a secretary. I thought we had one. No, a legal secretary, a widow, 60 years old, bad legs, good eyes, willing to work nights, willing to knock herself out for this goddamn job. Gee, how come we can't find her? Cal leans back in his chair. Sounds like a terrific deal for her. He stretches, arms over his head, glancing at his wristwatch. 11:30. This is ridiculous, Ray says, rolling down his sleeves. We're not accountants, we're lawyers. God damn it. Why do we mess with these returns? Why don't we tell them all, look, guys, we advise, that's all. We do not prepare tax returns. We do not do your busy work. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing because we have this same conversation every year. Here, give me those files. I'll take care of them. No, just leave them. Sandy'll do them in the morning. Sandy, Cal says, is a lousy filer. Their new secretary. Cherry has gone, but the new one has the same fake smile, the same wide-eyed, over-made-up look, and apologetic, fluttering hands. And the file baskets are still overflowing. Business as usual. Ray sighs. She's an improvement, though, huh? 3 letters this week, no errors. She doesn't crack gum in your face when she talks to you. Her name is Sandra Ferrantino. She also has a boyfriend who goes to Northwestern. A bad sign, he told Ray. Ray said, well, that's what happens when you let your partner do the hiring, buddy. They lock up, descend the smooth and silent elevator to the street. A hollow quiet fills the building, even though it is not empty tonight. There are lights behind many doors on their floor. The building glows as they walk away from it. Want to grab a sandwich? Sure. They walk the 2 blocks to the Carriage Grill, a fancy name for a dull spot, with its menu of pale, warmed-over food, a lawyer's hangout. Down the street at the Orrington Hotel are the accountants and data processing men. Just the same as college, when groups of lookalikes had their own spots. Fraternity men, independents, foreign students, med students, art students, the rich, the working, no poor students, just the rich or the working. So, nothing has changed. Beside him, Ray complains over his coffee cup. Said, I gave her a raw deal. I was the villain because I overexpected. I was a narrow-minded, arrogant chauvinist, her exact words. Christ, I ask you, is it chauvinistic to expect 6 hours of work out of somebody when you're paying for 8? Cherry, she told you all that. She wrote it in a letter, addressed it to me. You were innocent. I'm not sure why. I suppose, Cal says, because I left it up to you to handle it. I'm sorry. I know I do that to you. Cop out. I never know how to tell somebody, hey, you're just not making it. I don't know why. Ray shakes his head. No problem, Cal. I don't mind that. It's just, well, I like to be let in on what's happening with you off and on. And, you know, with me? What do you mean? You haven't been around the last couple of months, that's all. Around? What are you talking about? Jesus, Cal, I've known you for over 20 years. You think I can't tell when something's wrong? He looks down into his cup. You're not yourself. I'm not myself, he says. Okay, Howard, who am I then? But Ray doesn't answer. The waiter approaches with their corned beef sandwiches. He refills their coffee cups. What do you want me to do, Cal says. Stop by your office, hum a few bars from The Sound of Music every day? Everything's fine, Ray. Nothing to worry about. Why are you worrying, then? He laughs. I'm not. In fact, I've been thinking about taking a couple of days off in March to play in the lawyers' tournament in Dallas. Well, great. Why don't you do it? The middle of the month, I'd be leaving you with all this crap. Don't be dumb. I'd do it to you in a minute. He takes a bite out of his sandwich. Beth going with you? Probably, yeah. We'll stay with her brother and his wife. They have a place in Richardson. I think that's good, Ray says. I think it'd do you both good to get away for a few days. That's the answer. The answer to what? Life reduced to the simplest of terms? Formulas, get away for a while, everything works out for the best. Look, I'm sorry, Ray says. It's none of my business, but you worry too much. You've been on the rack about him long enough. It's a habit now. You've got to let go sometime, buddy. Ray, I'm not on the rack about him. Thing is, Ray says, in another year he'll be gone. Off to Michigan or Harvard or wherever the hell he gets it in his head he wants to go. Maybe he'll decide to take a tour of Europe for a year, not even go to school. Who knows? How come all of a sudden you know so much about him? I don't. Look, I'm giving you the benefit of my experience. Thanks, he says dryly. I mean with Valerie. It's more than her living away from home. She's gone, Cal. She's got her own life, her own friends. She breezes in for a few days of vacation. Maybe girls are different. I don't know. Or maybe she was too aware of the stuff that happened. I mean, between Nance and me. But they leave, Cal. And all that worrying just doesn't amount to a hill of crap. Just wasted energy. I'm not worried about Con, he says. Who then? Is it Beth? Is something wrong between Beth and you? No. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. He turns. Ray is wearing an uncomfortable look. Well, you gave me some advice a long time ago on that business with Nancy, and you know what that lets you in for, don't you? Getting it all back someday, whether you want it or not. So, how do you want it? He gives a snort of laughter. I don't want it. No mistaking the look of discomfort now. Ray has something on his mind. Listen, Cal. Nance and Beth had lunch together last week. He breaks off, staring down into his coffee cup. Next time, Cal says, try for more directness. Make an appointment. What are you supposed to tell me? I'm not supposed to tell you anything, Ray says unhappily. I'm just telling you. They had lunch together. Beth is pretty upset. She thinks you're out of focus. She says you're obsessed with Con's problems. You can't think about anything else. That's ridiculous, he snaps. She can't think about them at all. Now what does that say to you? It says nobody's normal, Ray says. Nobody's got it together. Not anybody in this friggin' world. Look, I'm sure as hell not setting myself up as some example, Cal. I just didn't know if you knew how she felt. I know. He feels sorry for Ray. This is not a pleasant role, counselor. He remembers that from 7 years ago. Wants to tell him he sympathizes. Wants to ask, how are things with you and Nancy now? How would you describe your marriage in terms of knowing each other, in terms of being friends, of understanding that hopelessly intricate network of clash and resolution that has been woven in over the last 20 years? Two separate, distinct personalities, not separate at all, but inextricably bound, soul and body and mind to each other. How do we get so far apart so fast? How can she believe that? Is it true? She believes it, or she never would have said it to Nancy, and even saying it, it is unlike her. She has never given so much of herself away. God, he is wandering tonight, his mind dealing in irrelevance. It is always this way when he is overtired. Listen, forget it, will you? Ray takes a swallow of his coffee. None of our business anyway. And I'm feeling very existential tonight. People are born, then they die. In between, they perform a lot of pathetic and more or less meaningless actions. Ray, Jesus, you don't believe that? He grins. Oh, yeah, when I'm sober, I believe it a lot. He looks at Cal. How about you? What do you believe, buddy? I believe I'll go to Dallas, Cal says. Play some golf. Maybe I'll get blind one night with my crazy brother-in-law and raise hell. Do it, Ray says. My blessings. On the subject of losing people, Ray is bitter. So much of the worrying you do, he tells Cal, is about losing your kids. And in the end, you lose them anyway, so what's the point? He feels he has lost Valerie forever. But things change. Situations change. She could come back. She probably will someday, through a husband, some children. The fear behind the fear of losing people is that there might have been something you could have done to prevent it. Last Christmas, they had lost Con in Florida at Miami International. Standing in the underground garage, the dirt and the oppressive heat surrounding them, the rental convertible parked at the curb, his heart had jolted in terror as he waited. Conrad had disappeared when they deplaned. He was gone for 40 minutes while Calvin Jarrett, world traveler, champion fence-sitter, had waited, finally getting hold of the airport police. How do you explain losing a 16-year-old in an airport? And as they were taking down a description, he had suddenly appeared, walking toward them from the escalator and through the glass exit doors. He had gone to look for a men's room. He had gotten lost. End of explanation. And then had come the telephone call from Howard 2 days later. They had gone to play golf. They had left him on the beach with some nice kids he had met down there. Nice. He had found some friends. And after they left, he had gone upstairs to the room, called Lake Forest to ask of his grandfather, remembered how many strings of lights he and Buck had put on the outdoor tree in front of their house last year. The telephone had been ringing when they walked in. Howard was frantic. Cal, don't do that again. Don't leave him alone down there. Something's wrong. I know it. You'd better have a talk with him. And so he had. He went immediately next door to the connecting room, and Conrad was lying on the bed in his bathing suit, reading a magazine, calm and relaxed. Yes, everything was fine. Yes, he had called them to wish them a Merry Christmas. Why? And for some reason, he had bought that too, even though like a single frame of film flicked on the mind screen and off, it had been there that day, the knowledge of the thing that he would do to himself someday. Out of focus, she said, obsessed. Maybe she is right. Maybe he is. One thing for sure, Ray is not right. Life is not a series of pathetic, meaningless actions. Some of them are so far from pathetic, so far from meaningless, as to be beyond reason, maybe beyond forgiveness. He looks around the dim interior at the knots of heads, nodding purple flowers in the dark. How about it? Illusion versus reality. All those in favor? He could poll them, but they are not representative. They are a bunch of hotshot lawyers. What do they know?